Hello, Parasport Nation. I'm Alex Smyth. Coming up on today's show, paracyclist Alexander Hayward. He was recently named one of New Brunswick's Athletes of the Year, along with Paralympic swimmer Danielle Doris. He joined to chat more about the honor and life on the road with co-host Nathan Clement. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
This is Parasport Nation. I'm Alex Smyth, and as always, I am joined by Nathan Clement. Nathan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Alex. It's not raining in Vancouver for once, so we're in good spirits over here. How are you doing today?
You know, I'm not too bad. I'm excited to actually chat with your teammate, Alex Hayward. I've had a chance to catch up with him prior to the Paris Games. Talk about a phenomenal start to a Paralympic career, racking up medals in the first cycle. There's a lot to kind of get to with him, and I'm also excited to find out more about your relationship with him because you guys are teammates, but also roommates on the road. So there's a lot of questions I want to ask you and him about that. But before we bring him in, why don't you give the folks at home a bit of a kind of understanding around the sport of para road cycling, because there's a lot of things folks need to know.
Paracycling is a very, on the surface, it looks very complex with the classification system, but it's very easy to break down and look at. So in paracycling, especially on the road, there are 4 different disciplines. You have the cycle, the handbike, the B for visually impaired, or the T for tricycle. So with the cycle, for example, and the handbike, the lower the number, the more affected the class is. So for example, a C1 or an H1 is going to be someone who is heavily affected. Now the cycle category are for people with 2 bikes, for 2 wheels, and the handbike is for people who are in recumbent style bikes that use their arms to propel themselves through the air and on the road. Now, in the handbike, as I said, H1 to H5 and cycle C1 to C5, it's more affected in the lower numbers. Higher numbers are the less affected riders. So often in like C5, you're going to have riders who might have a degenerative knee condition, might be missing a portion of their hand or foot. And a lot of those riders actually at that level are competing in world tour events. So on the able-bodied side, a lot of them are representing teams from different countries all around the world. So they're very, very high level. And then we have 2 other categories in there alone as well. We have the B for visually impaired, which is just one category where you have a pilot on the front of the bike and a stoker, which is the visually impaired rider on the back of the bike. And those 2 have to synchronize, work in tandem in their races. And then there's my category, the tricycle category. So we have 2 classes in trike, T1 being the most affected, like what I am, and T2 being the least affected. So a lot of the differences between like T1 and T2 is a lot of the T2 riders are able to get out of their seats, get out of their saddles when they're biking, say when they're going up a hill or when they're going around a corner. And then for a lot of the T1 riders, they are unable to do that or unable to move a good portion of their limbs and function. So for myself, for example, in the T1, I'm not able to move my hand with my own control while I'm on the bike or while I'm moving. So it has to stay in a certain position, and I just hope it does not come off the bike. But in paracycling, there's variations of the distances that they race, where often the T's, the trikes, will race shorter distances, same as the lower hand cycle category. So H1, H2 are going to be riding a lot shorter of distances. However, when you get up to the C's, especially C3 and beyond, you're often racing 70 kilometers plus. Same as the handbike categories, a lot of your races will be about 70 to 90K. And then in the tandem categories, the men often go about 110 to 130 kilometers. And the women will do about 95 to 110 kilometers. So there's a wide ranging areas of disciplines and changes in the cycle category.
Now, I'm curious too when it comes to paracycling. You mentioned with yourself, the hand control can be an issue. You can't move it yourself. Are there like certain adaptations or personalization you can do to provide yourself with better control? Like what are the rules around adaptations on paracycling?
With every adaptation, there's a couple things they look at. First off, it's safety of the adaptation, making sure that one, the rider's going to be safe with what they use, and secondarily, what is the purpose of that adaptation? Like for myself, for example, I have the one adaptation, which is a small one, which all riders in my condition or similar conditions are allowed, is to have different brake levers or different brake splitters. So I have all my braking going on one lever on the right side. So where you brake, I have it on one side. So that's one small adaptation I'm allowed. But another one I've recently added in the last year is taking off a portion of my handlebar, just because I wouldn't use it on the bike when I'm racing, because with my arm, it's very spastic and it has a lot of motion and movement, as I said, I can't control. So there's an adaptation there that I was allowed to take that bar off, because my arm got down that low. I could put myself in risk of safety and risking other riders just because of the spastic motion I receive and get. It's going to move often. And recently what I've done is I had to get the UCI, the Union Cyclisme International, to approve it right before the Paris Paralympics, but getting my handlebar actually lower, because for myself, having that handlebar lower allows me to get less strain on my left side, because when you're racing, when you're riding, and especially when your body is not in a proper square position, and even like slapped like this, you put a lot of pressure on your shoulder, you put a lot of pressure on your back, and that can cause fatigue, spasticity, and especially with my condition, it can really, really become an issue later on in a race or later on in a competition. And that's kind of the thing for many other riders too. You go through the classification, you go through the systems. Every rider has adaptations for places where they can put their amputated arms or amputated legs on the bike, so they're able to ride or they're able to pedal, or even for some riders who may not be able to use one of their limbs or one of their legs on a cycle bike or on a trike, they'll have a crank or a pedal that does not move and it just stays stationary. So there's little small adjustments, a little small adaptations that every rider is allowed, but it has to go through a process in the classification, but also outside of classification, where they're viewed, where they're determined to see if it's one, if it's safe, and two, does it benefit the rider or is it an unfair advantage?
Well, Nathan, this has been fantastic. Thank you for kind of giving us all a bit of a lowdown on the sport of paracycling. Let's welcome in your teammate and friend Alex Hayward. He was recently named New Brunswick's Athlete of the Year, along with para-swimmer Danielle Doris, and he's coming off a Paralympic cycle that resulted in a bronze medal in Paris for the 3,000 meter individual pursuit. Here's our interview with Alex. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So first off, congratulations on being named one of New Brunswick's Athletes of the Year. You're sharing the prestigious honor with Danielle Doris. This is your second time winning this award. So having been named it for the second time, what are the feelings, the emotions that are going through you when you found out that you were receiving this award?
I don't know. I think it's always interesting for me. I've always been super proud to be a New Brunswicker, and I think it's really cool to get recognized by New Brunswick for that. It's also, my grandfather brought it up this time, and it's given us a bunch of reasons to get together as a family, regardless of what the kind of award is, and I think that's about just as cool as getting the award itself, right? So people are having kids and getting more and more busy, but people are taking the time to get together and have a breakfast the next day and taking the time to chat a little bit. And I think that's pretty special.
Yeah, it's been really cool just to see like your successes so early on in the bike. Like we've been teammates now for a couple of seasons, and from the moment you got on the team, you won your first race. You won that time trial in Quebec City, and now you've gone on to win a bronze medal at the Paralympics. What has that experience been like, going from Quebec City all the way to reaching that podium in Paris?
It's been pretty interesting. I think the timing was pretty good. I was just wrapping up my engineering degree at the very end of 2021 and was kind of looking to redefine myself again, and had, just like you mentioned, finished the Quebec City project, and it just kind of made sense to jump all into paracycling and make the move to Bromont and do everything I could to finally go to a Paralympics, like I'd been dreaming of doing for the last 12 years, really, since my accident. So yeah, it's been a bit of a blur. Obviously there's been lots of ups and downs, but no regrets. So it's pretty much all you can ask for, I guess.
And within that journey, I mean, obviously you've, as Nathan says, like you had success on the bike early in a cycling career. How are you feeling post games, coming away with a bronze medal in your first Paralympic Games, but also to how are you doing now? Because, you know, it sounds like you're still very busy, even though the games are done and it now the start of a new Paralympic cycle.
Yeah, I've shifted quite a bit. I kind of made it a point to make sure I had some very clear goals for after the games, just so that I didn't get too much of that post-game blues that everybody talks about. My dream, you know, after knowing that I was going to go to Paris, I immediately started kind of shifting my mind towards what am I going to do next. And I think for me, it was very important to try and do another cycle, another quad leading into the next Paralympics, but from New Brunswick with a little bit more balance in my life, and to kind of use these engineering tools that I worked so hard to get, but maybe wasn't dipping into too much. So I moved back to New Brunswick, which has been super exciting. I'm seeing my friends all the time, my family. I've been house shopping a little bit, and I work on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and train during that and a lot afterwards in the 4 days after in between. And yeah, so far it's been really great. It's nice change of pace, and I'm just kind of getting used to it now, but I'm pretty happy with my decision.
For the viewers and listeners back home, it's important for them to know that Alex and I are actually roommates on the cycling team, and we have a certain photo that we're going to love to hear the backstory of. What's the story behind this photo of you on the bike, taking a phone call with our coach, Phil Abbott, right there. So what's the backstory on that photo?
Yeah, I mean, we've been rooming together really right from the start. It was pretty apparent early on that we had very similar interests, and our sense of humors were pretty aligned. It started out with, I think, sport nutrition gels. Nathan would kind of sneak them into my bag, and then things escalated. I think I snuck some bike parts under his pillow one night, and they happened to stay there all night because I forgot to mention it to him. And yeah, this is just another one of those. Nate took the hotel phone in Glasgow, and snuck it in my bag before I went to the road race at World Championships, and had a good chuckle in my warm up when I got there, and people felt we needed to document it. I'm not exactly sure why Phil felt the need to do it that way, but it's definitely a nice time stamp, I think.
And so can you talk a bit more, because I'm sure for folks at home, they may not kind of realize like what is life on the road. Obviously, you know, you got your teammate and roommate here chatting with you as well. So it's like, what is that dynamic like when you are on the road as a team? You mentioned when you were in Scotland, you know, you're playing pranks with one another, but it's like, how is that also important to kind of make sure, hey, you're there for a competition, but you're still like not being too stressed or too overly serious. You're having a bit of fun, a bit of levity as you're there for a major competition.
Yeah, I think there's two real important things, I think, anyways, for me, and it seems like for Nathan as well. The first is, you know, obviously we're there to do a job, and we're going to make sure we get all of our work done and take our competition days very seriously. But I think there's also a lot of value in kind of not feel like you need to tiptoe when you're in your room and you're in this kind of in-between state between whether it's races or training, or, you know, it's nice to be in an environment, at least for me, where I don't really feel like I need to be careful about what I say, or, you know, it's not awkward if it's silent. So we were pretty comfortable pretty quick. And I think being able to check out in between, whether that's, watching the same YouTube videos or do our own thing or just joking around, I think in the long run kind of translate to decent performances. So yeah, I compare it a lot to kind of being in a college dorm, that first year where your beds are really close and you're spending a whole lot of time in each other's space.
Who is the messier of the two of you? Is it you or Nathan?
Well, I think I don't know. I probably have to throw Nate under the bus on that one, but he's done a better job of keeping things at least on his side of the room. So I go pretty easy on him.
Nathan, you want to respond to that accusation that you're the messier of the two of you?
It is known, it is out there now. I can't defend myself. I am the messier of the two. And Alex deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for some of the messes that I've created, just his patience and everything with that. But I have one last question for Alex, because for me and you in the sport of cycling, we get to go to some pretty cool spots, whether it's training camps, whether it's competitions, or even in between competitions. Do you have a favorite spot that you've ridden so far, and maybe somewhere you dream to ride in the future?
Ooh, good question. I've got two favorites kind of for very different reasons. I spent a month in Australia last winter. I thought that was really fascinating. Lots of really cool landscapes, awesome weather, and a bunch of things I'd never seen before. And then competition-wise, I think Zurich was the best. The course was just unbelievable. The environment was really cool. Obviously Paris is always going to be number one, but if I had to pick something other than Paris, it would definitely be those two. And then as far as places I've never been, I feel like the automatic cycling answer is always Girona. So until I've checked off Girona or, some nice spots in Spain off my list, that'll probably always be the answer.
Alex, we know you're extremely busy, so thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, throwing your teammate under the bus. I always appreciate that. But again, congratulations on the award and best of luck. We'll have to check in with you down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, always happy to chat.
Okay, that's got to be one of my favorite interviews we've done so far, Nathan. I love just getting... Okay, the sports side is impressive. It's fantastic he's being honored for his achievements in the sporting world, but come on, you got to talk about those pranks. I love the fact that you snuck the hotel phone in his bag, and he rolled with it, literally, during the warm-up for a race.
Yeah, it's just amazing that kind of rapport we've created over the years. It started off very small by cooking food in our tiny hotel room in Quebec City. And then as he said, me putting nutrition gels in his bag. And then even getting to the point where he put a whole entire bike seat underneath my pillow. But it's just small little things like that. And it escalated to the phone. But it's been such a joy to have someone like that, because Alex is a decorated athlete at this point, and he's already accomplished so much in his career, but he's just a stand-up guy too.
But how did you not notice the bike seat? You didn't sleep with the bike seat under the pillow the entire night,
I did.
Right?
I slept with it under my pillow the entire night. Yeah. Yeah, I was that jet-lagged and
you just didn't notice it?
I was that jet-lagged and that tired that he slipped it under when I was getting dinner in the hotel room in Italy. And before I knew it, I woke up with a messed up neck the next day. And I was like, why is my neck funny? And then I asked him that. I was like, what's going on? Why is my neck sore? These pillows suck. And he's like, oh, I got something to tell you. There's a bike seat under your pillow, but we've done other fun things like that. I had, and I say I had because where the story is going to go, I brought a Wii to our training camp we had in Bromont, Quebec before we went to World Championships in 2023. And as a team, we were playing Mario Kart, Mario Party, all the games as a group in Bromont. And as I went off to Dumfries, Galloway, where a lot of the road para races were happening, Alex and a couple of our teammates were up in Glasgow for the track event. So Alex was away from my hotel room for about 4 or 5 days since I arrived. And as Alex was getting closer, I was like, you know what? I'm going to set the Wii up. So when Alex gets down here, him and I can play like Mario Kart. We can just have a good time and just kind of take that stress away and just relax before all the events start. So as I go to plug the Wii in, I made sure I had like circuit breakers. I had everything good to go in this older hotel in Scotland. And as soon as as soon as I plugged it in, I saw sparks fly everywhere. Power went out in my room, but as it turned out, in the hallway and in the floors above me and below me in our little wing of the hotel room. So I absolutely just short-circuited the whole like wing of a hotel room trying to plug a Wii in so Alex and I could play. So it's just like fun little things like that. That's something that we've always tried to do, and even sometimes it takes sacrificing a hotel room or sacrificing a hotel to to get a Wii working.
Now, here's the question though: did you come clean? Did people know it was you, or is this the first time you're admitting that that was a result of you trying to plug in a Wii in a old hotel?
I owned it. I was like right away. I was like,
Okay.
I did something stupid. I did something really stupid.
Usually I'm just like, it wasn't me. If anything bad happens, nope, wasn't me. Don't know what happened here. But can you talk a bit more about like the life on the road when you are going to these competitions? Because that's a part of, it's a major part of not only living the life as an athlete, but being a part of these competitions that I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough. Like the ins and outs of actually, being away from the families, being on the road, making sure you have a good rapport with a roommate or with your team, because you're spending a ton of time with them.
Exactly. It's there's so much that's behind the scenes, like you probably know too, for a lot of the competitions that you cover and a lot of the events that you go to, you're on the road a lot. And it's important to get close with that team, even if you're going to be sharing a room with them or not. It's just important to have that kind of rapport and be loose at the end of the day. And that's like one of the best things about Alex, but also the group that we have on the cycling team is, as a lot of us are older and have experience, where we want to make sure we're having fun at the end of the day. There's no point in just going to a competition and just being just so robotic that you don't have emotion, you don't have fun, you don't play. Like often we're playing like Uno, we're playing card games, we're just always interacting as a group, and that's something that's so special and so unique. And sometimes it results in pranks, and it results in just doing loose things, and especially having someone like a roommate like Alex. He knows when to flip that switch, and when it's race day, we dial it in, we make sure we do what we need to do that's not going to affect our performance. But outside of that, that's 99% of the other time that we're there is. And it's a lot better than just staring at a ceiling, just hoping for it to be race day. But we just try to make it fun, and we try to make those experiences just stand out, because these are the things that you're going to remember. Of course, you're going to remember the performances and the successes, and especially for someone like Alex, who's already reached great heights in the sport and hopefully is going to reach other great heights. But it's those laughs. It's those fun memories. It's that time he spent with the team at the dinner table, outside of there, playing boccia at night. That's something we do as a team. We play boccia.
Interesting.
And we just try to keep it loose and keep it fun.
And do you ever, like when you are at a competition, let's say, Scotland, for example, you brought that competition up. I know when you told us you were there, I was jealous, because we had you on Now with Dave Brown when I was still on that show, and you were reporting and chatting with us from the castle, and I was like, oh my goodness, like that's a pretty sweet. Do you ever get like a little bit of downtime? I know there's not a lot of downtime. Like let's say, after a race or a competition, do you have a day or so that you can at least just unwind and soak up the environment you're in before you have to head back to the airport? Or is it as soon as that race is done, you're on the next flight out of there?
I was very dependent on where you are or what the competition is. Luckily for me, a lot of the races I do, because with paracycling, most of the races like our World Cups and World Championships historically have been 4-day events. And I usually race day 1 and day 3. So for myself, I'm usually in recovery mode, but able to soak a lot more in on that day 4 day when like everyone else is racing. So I'll go to the course, cheer them on, really take in the crowd environment. But even throughout the competition. One of the best things with like experience and now being on their team for a while is a lot of these courses, a lot of these places are in really cool, unique spots. And because we're cyclists, we're out on the bike. We're out seeing different locations. We're out seeing different cities and different areas. Like we do one race historically in the last 2 years in northern Italy, in the northeast region. Like you can see Slovenia in the distance. Like it is flatland. It is right by farm fields, right by vineyards. And you also have like the Dolomite mountain ranges in Italy, but also the mountains in Slovenia, as I said, in the distance. So we've had like 3, 4, 5 days of training, whether it be before or after competitions. And our coaches and staff have let us go for free rides, go wherever we wanted to on the bike. And it's been really, really nice just to see these small towns in Europe and really get to go into the mountains sometimes and just even go by vineyards, or especially that region we're in. They're known for their fruit. So you see a lot of apples, a lot of apricots, a lot of you name it. And it is just very, very incredible. Like cycling can create so many unique experiences just from doing your job and doing what you're there to do, but also realize that you need to have fun and you also need to take in these experiences as well. And I feel like our coaching staff, our head coach, Sebastian Travers, does an amazing job of balancing that for us, giving us that time when we need to be serious, but also when we need to have fun and let loose and just enjoy everything. And just really taking this experience of being an athlete.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know we're coming down to the end of the show, but I want to quickly ask you the question you asked Alex. What is the favorite place you've traveled for competitions, and what is the place you want to go for a competition?
I love Italy, but I think my favorite so far is Santiago, Chile. I just felt the atmosphere, the crowd that we had there, and just being in that city and seeing the Andes in the distance and just being in that village, being in that atmosphere was absolutely special and something I'm going to hold on to forever. But somewhere I would love to go. I got 2 spots. I'm going to say them quickly. One is Colombia. Colombia's really started to grow as a cycling destination and a cycling location. And I would love to do some of the climbing, some of the hills, some of the descending that Colombia has. And also, I've heard from multiple people, and I've started to do some research on it, but northern Thailand is really starting to become a good spot for cycling. So those are 2 spots that come to mind. They're off the beaten path, but I would love to go there. I would love to experience Colombia and Thailand.
This sounds phenomenal. I would love to hear about your experience when you get back from those places. I'm not going to be cycling there myself. It's too hard of a journey for me. But that's it. That's all the time we have for the show. For Nathan Clement, I'm Alex Smyth. Catch you next time on PSN.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.